whole set and asked the athlete to do an internal introspection so that I could find out who he really was and how he felt about starting and being on a winning team and the quality of coaching and all the rest. Because by doing that, I could establish a bond very much like you have with a best friend, where even if you come back a long time later, you still know what their emotional center is. And I was able then to out-recruit people that had enormously more resources. So I was listening. And we profiled. Because after that first year, I realized that if I didn't have athletes that wanted to be role models, that were more ambitious about moving off the field, I was lost. I was seriously lost. So, and I would do better with that kind of group. So the practice grew and grew. I represented Lennox Lewis in boxing and Oscar De La Hoya and tried to create a construct where they learned how to be their own promoter. So they weren't paying 40% of their money to be a promoter to set up some chairs and make a few calls. And so the concept was innovation all the way through. I had a crisis of conscience in the late 1980s, representing half the quarterbacks in the NFL, and I watched them being hit over and over and over again in the head. There was a game Troy Aikman played against the Arizona Cardinals where he's laying flat on his back, knocked out. And you know, time is not absolute except on the clock. It's your perception of it. So for what seemed like an hour, he lay there not moving. And I was terrified. So I started taking these players to doctors and said, how many concussions is too many? Where's the magic number? And what they said was, we don't know. So here in Newport, I held 3 concussion conferences in the 1980s, 90s. And we got neurologists together, we issued white papers, we tried to take the head and neck out of blocking and all the rest. Not much changed, but I got the players to sit and listen. So then, in 2006, we did it again in Los Angeles. And then I had the leading neurologists from across the country, and I got every human being that writes for a newspaper or electronically covers anything, from AP to Reuters, from CNN to Sports Illustrated, from the New York Times to Washington Post, all to come out here so they would hear what the results were. And then the neurologist told us that 3 or more concussions is the midpoint, is the jumping off point, and after that you have an exponentially higher rate, premature senility, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and depression. So I called it a ticking time bomb and an undiagnosed health epidemic. Undiagnosed because the players are in denial. They will play under any circumstances. And the worst part of what I did over the years was the injury rate. Primarily in football, but also in baseball, also in basketball. And what happened over time is that I really needed a physician's desk reference, a PDR, on my desk, because I became an expert in every joint in the human body, cartilage, ligaments, so that we could help players escape from the shoddiness that was football, baseball, medicine in the 70s and 80s, which has improved considerably. I now believe this, that when an offensive lineman hits a defensive lineman at the inception of every football play, it produces a low-level subconcussive event. A little bit of change. So an offensive lineman can walk out of pro football with 10,000 subconcussive hits in practice and in play, in high school, college, and pros, none of which have ever been diagnosed, and none of which he's aware of. The aggregate of which almost certainly does ALS and chronic traumatic encephalopathy and the rest. So we have a whole generation at risk. And if 50% of the mothers actually know the real facts about concussion and collision sports and tell their kids, you can play any sport and we'll back you, but not tackle football, It won't kill football. It just will change the socioeconomics so the same people play football that currently box. And so what do you do when you see that the emperor has no clothes? And I love football. It teaches invaluable lessons. It teaches a sense of self-respect. It teaches self-discipline. It teaches putting into the future a goal that you now have to sacrifice for. It teaches teamwork. It teaches taking complex bodies of information and using them in real time. And it teaches people how to deal with adversity when everything's against you and elevate their level of play with a quiet mind that comes through it. So I'm working with helmetry, a new helmet that for Tate technology that uses coil and compression to attenuate the energy that hits the side of the helmet so that you actually reduce it. We're working with new devices to spot subconcussive hits in real time on the sideline. At the end of the day, the only thing that will probably save us from this is stem cells, and they're not that far away from having solutions to Alzheimer's, which then will be good for the whole concept of concussion. That and hyperbaric oxygen right now. And it's everywhere I go. The girls who head the ball show lower test scores, and they have tinier necks. So injuries became a real tough issue over time as time went on. So in my private life, I tried to follow the admonitions of my father. So we set up a program called Steinberg Leadership in the wake of Oklahoma City, where in cities we trained 30 people about how to spot skinheads and hate groups, how to go to police departments and alert them how to intervene in crisis situations, and how to go into school systems and design programs that promote ethnic tolerance. And I started it here in Orange County, and it spread to 30 cities. And so we kept producing more and more young doctors, lawyers, business people, teachers that were equipped to do this work. Because I wasn't alive during the Holocaust, I wasn't alive during, I was alive but not active in civil rights movement, but this is our watch, this is our time. And my dad had a corollary to everything he used to talk about, which was when you look for the they or them who are supposed to be responsible for solving X, Y, or Z problem, whether it's picking this can up or whether it's dealing with a real societal problem. He used to look at me and he'd say, there is no they, son. The they is you. So we sort of carried that heavy responsibility. And Madeline Albright and I set up a program called Adopt a Minefield, where you could demine an acre in Angola and Mozambique and Cambodia. We did a thing with the Human Relations Commission here in Orange County, where we took kids from Newport Beach so they could experience what a Latino person was actually like for some days, or a Black or Vietnamese, and kept them together as leaders in the middle schools and high schools. We gave them a week training, and then another program at SOCA that brought people in from around the world. So, in 1993, a film director came to me named Cameron Crowe. And he wrote a lot of rock criticism. I was aware of that in the New York Times. But he also went underground in a local high school in Southern California to write a book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I thought it was very funny. And so he asked if he could follow me around. So he went with me to the draft in 1993. Where Drew Bledsoe got drafted. He came to the league meetings. He came to Pro Scouting Day at SC, 2 Super Bowl parties, a number of games with me, and he was a fly on the wall, and I told him stories. Lots and lots of stories. And then he wrote a script. Now my job as a consultant was to vet the script, so the willing suspension of disbelief necessary to hold you in a motion picture didn't get broken. So you don't think it's just a spoof. And then he started assigning me actors to work with to put into role. So I had a young actor named Cuba Gooding Jr., who I took down to the Super Bowl in Arizona, and I made him pretend and stay in role that he was the wide receiver the whole week, and I was his agent. I actually had to show the quarterback in that film, Jerry O'Connell, how to throw a spiral, because he had gone to NYU, and they don't have football. So it was an interesting experience. So we're out in Palm Desert, and a player who went to SC, Tim McDonald, and then later went on to the Cardinals, was looking for a new team in free agency. And Cameron took him upstairs in his hotel room as I was walking him around, Tim around, showing him off the teams. He said, "Tim, what are you looking for in this experience?" And Moneyline with Lou Dobbs was on the television in the background. And Tim said, I want to find a team that will show me some respect. I want a team that will show me some winning for once. I want a team that will show my wife a good time. And I want a team to show me the money. Brought Oliver down. You know, they do the Toshiba here. And so we did our own fundraiser that night, and I had a bunch of athletes down here. And so Oliver's down here. Now, you want to talk about a fish out of water. So he cast as the lead in his movie Any Given Sunday a rapper. And I won't tell you who he was, but I'll tell you the first initial of his name was P. And so this rapper was going to be an actor. And so Oliver said to me, I have to look and see, can he throw the football? And I said, Oliver, not to be sexist, he throws worse than a girl. I know some powder puff quarterbacks who really put him to shame. So they bring in all the great football minds of the 20th century to coach this young rapper. No, businessman, movie star, TV star. So Oliver asked me again, what's it look like? And I said, if you want to double him in every single scene, okay. But they fired him, and that gave a young comedic actor his first break, and that was Jamie Foxx. And one of my jobs was to put Al Pacino into role, who was really a boxing fan. And another was well, I was married at the time, not that these two events are going to be